Thank you for listening to the Women Entrepreneur Spotlight and R2RB podcast series. My guests are Naomi Girke of Bowtie Atticus Organization and Jennifer Estelle of Be and Let Live Project. Both Naomi and Jennifer are two of the hardest working champions of animal rescues and animal welfare. In this podcast, we discuss critical issues such as BSL, breed-specific legislature, animal welfare, spaying and neutering, and more. This is the first episode with many more to follow. Thank you for supporting your favorite animal rescue. I want to thank Naomi Girke of Bowtie Atticus and Jennifer Estelle of Be and Let Live Project. Naomi resides in Delaware and Jennifer lives in Pennsylvania. So welcome to the both of you, and thank you for taking the time to be here for this discussion on breed-specific legislation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's going to be about animal welfare, education of humans, and more. And by the way, it is National Pit Bull Month, and both Naomi and Jen have attended the Stand Up for Pits fundraiser in New York City and Hollywood, California, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
That must have been both going to New York City and then to Hollywood. Just had to be an amazing time.
The best.
I bet.
And we're going again.
Are you?
Oh, yeah.
What's coming up, Hollywood or New York?
Hollywood is coming up November 5th, but next year New York and Hollywood, we're going to do both, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, nice. I love it. All right. So to get us started, what is BSL and is it effective? And are there other ways of making communities safer?
So BSL, which is also known as breed-specific legislation, it is an ordinance that does restrict ownership of certain identified breeds of dogs. And sadly, only 127 U.S. cities and towns have repealed BSL. It's really sad because it's basically based on the physical characteristics of a dog. This type of stereotyping, it results in families being torn apart, unfair imprisonment of dogs, euthanasia of innocent dogs, forced muzzle rules, and even landlord restrictions. And, a lot of times people will say, why don't you just move? Well, it's not that easy, and it's really not. And so a lot of people are forced to live by these breed-specific laws. It's really something that is devastating to families and their dogs. And unfortunately, most of BSL does focus on the pit bull type dog. It really doesn't focus on irresponsible ownership or responsible ownership. It actually discriminates against responsible owners and their dogs who might fit that breed bias. And as far as addressing the social issues, it really doesn't help because states spend taxpayer dollars trying to enforce ineffective bans and restrictions rather than implementing, let's say, proven solutions like enforcing leash laws or licensing. Spaying and neutering, top of our list, right, Jen? Mm-hmm. Simple education of responsible pet ownership. I think a lot of that goes to the wayside. You look at the shelter situation where they're so overwhelmed that somebody comes in for a dog and they're desperate to get rid of the dog, and they give the dog to somebody without maybe a home check or maybe without even spaying or neutering the dog, and this in turn adds to the problem. I think that one of my favorite groups, and I do know I speak for Jen, and this is Stand Up for Pits. I believe that they sum it up as a whole. BSL is, we believe what is happening to the pit bull type dogs is not just an animal issue, but very much a direct reflection of a broken society, thus making it everyone's problem. And I absolutely agree with that. And with that, I'm going to let Jen move right in.
Thanks, Naomi. I mean, that's beautiful. You summed it up perfectly. I would like to add that, the reason that we like the spay and neuter initiatives and Stand Up for Pits is because they look at the solution, not just the problem. They're presenting a problem. They're telling you that there's this huge problem, but they're also providing you solutions and how we can correct it. And it doesn't always necessarily mean you need to rescue a dog or donate. It's really important to understand why we share what we share and how these dogs are saved when we start networking. We start networking them. We start, fostering them. There's just so many ways to help, and it's been an amazing community.
So true.
Absolutely. And so what is the critical importance of bringing awareness to humans versus animal welfare?
Well, I think they're both directly connected, is that you can't have one without the other. There are animals that are being abused by broken humans. So I think the question is more of, why would somebody think that treating an animal like that is okay? And why are these people walking our streets? There's no accountabilities. I'm not an expert on the laws, but I know that the laws need to change to protect these animals. And obviously, a lot of the responsibility falls on rescues and nonprofits, because the shelters that are government funded don't always necessarily allocate their funds correctly, the way we see it. They would rather pay for euthanasia than focusing on the problem, the community, and the solution. And the solution really is spay and neuter. I do not agree with breeding at all. That can be a whole nother show. Right. And I know that a lot of discussion back and forth about responsible breeding. There's no such thing as responsible breeding when millions and millions of dogs are being euthanized annually, and we don't even know the numbers because there's no standardization when it comes to the dog coming in, the dog going out. And like Naomi said, sometimes these shelters are in underdeveloped communities, undereducated communities, and it's a circle. It's just they dump the dogs and they come back and they get them. These dogs aren't neutered. These dogs aren't going to proper homes. There's no standards.
None.
They don't even know if the dog's going to a home where it's going to be responsibly cared for, and that's not the dog's problem. That's a direct reflection of the human. So it's like, if you had higher standards of who could, own a dog, then certain things probably we wouldn't have rescues. We wouldn't need rescues anymore. We would have safer communities that would focus on education of the proper care and treatment of animals, which is a direct reflection of the human.
And it's such a large problem. I mean, this will never be corrected overnight, but where do we start to educate people? Because I've said this before, I've had discussions with you both, where do we start educating the humans that are in such need of it, that just, the abuse and the mutilations and, just total disregard for, the animal itself. Where do you start?
I think we really start with following certain groups that are really dedicated to pulling these animals, like death row dogs. There's a lot of resources. There's a lot of groups. There's a lot of nonprofits doing some really great things to help, fund spay and neuter, that help bring animals into certain situations. Like Marley's Mutts is one prime example. It's one of my favorite groups. That's Zach Stowe. And he does a lot of shelter pulls, and he brings the dogs into his prison programs.
Oh, wow.
Where they educate the prisoner on how to properly care for an animal and how it really helps the reform rate. So I suggest just following some really good groups that are doing some really good things to help their community, to help their people, to help their animals, to kind of balance out where we are right now. Really, really understand why we say adopt, don't shop.
Absolutely.
I know it's, this kind of joke or whatever, but no, there's a story behind it, and it's important. And it's important that we're talking about it.
Absolutely. And there has to be a continued open discussion because, so many people, it's like, I want to help, but, I'm not in position to do it. I also say this, with my other rescues that I follow, and it's one little thing. And that one little thing starts the domino effect with everything.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's sharing a post. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out and rescue a dog, or even go. I can't walk into a kill shelter and volunteer, but I share posts of the people that actually go in and do that, because that is mentally draining work. I would not be able to do that, but it's important that somebody does it, because somebody goes in and shows those dogs love and attention and gets them seen. Otherwise, they would never be seen,
Right.
and we wouldn't do conversation because nobody would understand what's going on.
No,
That is
and,
correct.
and it is important and maybe sometimes that's where you start your education. It's like, this is the end result.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly. There's
Well, and I think if you put it into real numbers, I don't think that people actually understand that to be a no-kill shelter, your save rate has to be 90%. Okay, so that's 90%. That's a high number.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the entire United States, there's roughly only 57% of the shelters in the United States are considered no-kill. So that's really it's not a great number when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And really you have the higher kill states, the Carolinas or the Alabamas, or the ones that have the not so great animal welfare laws. And those animals, they're not, as much as the people are trying to help them, they're not protected in any sort of way.
No.
And it's really up to us to help them grow and educate and learn, because really the statistics are drastically traumatic of animals that don't survive in our shelter system in the U.S.
And it continues to grow to be a bigger problem.
Well, yeah, because there's supply and demand. So
Right.
when you have breeders there that are still pumping out dogs, and we have shelter systems that are overwhelmed, how do you balance that out?
Right. And when you actually have to have shelters or rescues that are purebred, because those dogs are getting dumped and abandoned too.
Yeah. The shelter, they just 89% of the dogs in shelters are pit bulls, but you can still get full bred German Shepherd. People think that they're buying this perfect dog, and there's no such thing.
No.
A dog, it comes with his own personality. I live down the road from this breeder that they only breed this specific, I think it's Irish setter, and it will come fully trained, and people pay $20,000 for these dogs.
Oh my gosh.
You know how shelter $1,000? They would pour it back in the community and educate why we say adopt, don't shop.
I know more could think of doing that than I don't know what. I mean, that's just
I think Jen said it best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no such thing as responsible breeding when animals are dying every day in shelters. Purebreds too. So there's no reason.
And you think of like the mental mentality of vet techs, of volunteers, of shelter workers. They have really high suicide rates. They have really high depression. They have fatigue because they can't. It's not sustainable.
Well, the young girl that I was just speaking about, Michelle, she's the vet tech. She's been a vet tech since over, how old is she, Sean? 15, 16 years now. And I know for a fact that is so true. And she says it all the time that, she has to, and I'm sure other vet techs feel the same way, that, sometimes you just want to take, the client coming in and shake them and say, what are you doing?
Right. And then there's no laws too. So if a rescue gets a dog and they don't think that the dog is being well taken care of, and maybe this is where, we can come in with our nonprofit and say, we can help educate this person if they really want the dog or they want to rehome the dog. But there are laws that require some shelters, knowing that the dog's neglected, not cared for, and possibly like borderline abused, they have to return them.
And so this comes into play next with the spay and neutering. What is the mentality of people with a spay and neutering? Is it those who are breeders? I don't get it, but I see that part of it. Is it because people feel that it's too expensive? They don't feel being responsible is an issue?
Do you want to take this, Naomi?
Well, I think that it is more of an education issue. I do think that a lot of people, they think, oh, I'll get it done, or they don't know enough about it. And then before you know it, they've got litters out. I mean, I'm really, I know that dogs are a big thing, but cats are a big thing too, especially in the unwanted communities where they're just feral and you know, it's just a routine medical procedure that could save so many lives, period.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally, from what I've experienced in the year that I've been in trapping, is that we need county government and state help financially, for education purposes, for resources. It has to be done, because people, and like Jennifer said, shelters are adopting out dogs that aren't spayed or neutered because they need to get the dog out of there to make room for another dog.
Right.
So in this
Sometimes they have a voucher. Oh, you bring it back, you'll get your, you know, people are not always accountable. They're not always reliable. They're not always going to do that.
Nope.
So then what happens is they get the dog home and they think, oh, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get it done. And you know what? Maybe they had to pay $50 for the voucher. Well, guess what? 2 months goes by and they don't care anymore.
No.
So that dog doesn't get fixed, remains in that home, and who knows what else can happen. Do I feel it's the shelter's responsibility to follow up on that? I do. But can they? Maybe they can't because they're so overwhelmed. That's where people need to come in and take responsibility and accountability of the animals that are adopted out, to not let any animal leave a rescue without being spayed or neutered, period.
Absolutely.
I just believe that. I mean, in a foster situation is one thing, but to be adopted out and not be spayed or neutered, I think is an ultimate sin as far as I'm concerned.
No,
Yeah.
it's true.
it's very careless on the shelter's part. But again, they're understaffed and overwhelmed. And I'm not making excuses for them, but
Right. It's the truth.
and when they and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if they adopt that dog out, that keeps their percentage high, which means they get more government funding. Correct?
Right. I
Right.
believe that.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what home they go to as long as they get out of the shelter. This is a whole nother show too, because this can open up a whole can of worms. This is when you have to look at who's in charge. Why are they in charge? And why aren't they doing anything about it? How much are
Yeah.
they getting paid?
Well, Jen hit the nail on the head, though. You know, it's in that situation. It is true. You know, the more dogs they get out, maybe the more government funding they get. It's
Question that I struggle with. It's how does a shelter have to beg for money, and you have these breeders that can charge thousands of dollars?
$20,000. You just said about the
$20,000.
Yeah, and I mean, this is another topic for another show too. It's just there's some breeds that are, going back to why don't people spay and neuter, is because people can make millions of dollars if they get Frenchy dog, that's highly sought after.
Wow.
And how many French dogs are in rescues?
There's states where you can have up to 4 litters a year and not have to pay for a breeder's license. So you can literally sit on the side of the road with a sign that says puppies for $125 or purebred beagles for $250, which we have a guy that does it here, and he never is held accountable. I have written in and say, are these dogs neutered? Are they spayed? Are they vaccinated? I mean, where did they come from? Where's the mom? Where's the dad? Nothing. I get nothing from animal control. Or animal welfare. We don't have animal control here, animal welfare. But because there's it's rampant. And like Jennifer said, we could do a whole nother show on that.
We will.
Uh-huh.
We definitely will.
And
going back to in the beginning, where you were talking about the pit bulls being singled out and the breed specific,
they are targeted,
right? Targeted, and there are the breeds that fall under that category. I know here in the United States, do they just look at the dog and say, okay, this fits the bill, or do they measure? Because I thought I read, and I know that maybe here is different than in London and Canada, but do they measure the dog? Do they take?
I think it's European countries, they measure the dog, looking at their characteristics and then putting them under a label and then saying that they're a dangerous breed. So they take a look at the dog's head size and chest size instead of his personality and adopting him into the right home.
So is it animal welfare that's making that call? Who's saying that dog fits this description of?
I think like So when a dog comes into the shelter on intake, one of the questions you have to ask is, what's the breed? So why is the breed,
Exactly.
you
Right.
know?
So they look at the dog and they look at, right.
Well, I
Right.
I just have to interject a little bit right here because a mutual friend of ours, Emily, from Canada, who was a children's author, and her daughter, Sydney, when I interviewed them, and I was talking about their dog, and I happened to say pit bull, and Sydney said,
And she
well,
said no.
she said, no, we don't call them pit bulls here. I said, well, I learn something every day. What do they call them? And she said, or what do you call them? And she said, we call them good dogs. I said, I like it. They're
Yep.
all good dogs. They don't have a breed name.
Yeah.
I love Sydney. Yeah, she's amazing.
She
But I
is.
think Jen hit the nail on the head. If Atticus was in a shelter, because my dog is Lab Staffy, a Boston Terrier, in a breed specific legislative state, he would be, if they wanted to adopt him out, they would
Right.
just put lab mix.
That's
Right.
it.
But
So they're not doing a blood
but if they
test.
did his
They're not
right,
even-
but if they did his DNA, they would see that he has American Staffordshire Terrier. So therefore, he could literally fall under breed specific legislation.
It's just mind-boggling because you all both have mentioned personalities, and that comes into play. I mean, at one time, and maybe still, the pit bull, unfortunately, the humans, the adults that are irresponsible, and then we're breeding them for fighting, then they've got such a bad reputation back when in the 80s. And then I had a pit bull. It was the best dog ever. It was a good dog.
Yeah.
I mean, my two older girls, they would take a hold of him and walk. He was their walker. And so, yeah, it's just mind-boggling sometimes what people will come up with. And I understand, and I know you both do also, that yes, there are dogs that, for whatever reason, just like with humans, we all snap sometimes, right?
Yeah, a lot of these dogs that come from the shelter have not had the best interactions with humans. And again, it falls on the nonprofits, the volunteers, to try and figure out the behavior of the dog and what the dog needs, because you don't know the backstory behind the dog.
No.
Like we dogs coming in that are starved, that are mutilated, that are set on fire. Horrible, horrible things they do to these dogs. Some of them can't recover, because
Exactly.
they're so traumatized.
Absolutely.
And we can all relate to that, It's like you said, yeah, I do snap every once in a while when I'm triggered. And it's the same thing with the dog. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It does not matter the breed.
No.
Right.
No.
Naomi said earlier too, it comes down to responsible breeding. If you want to get a terrier, any kind of terrier, a Frenchie terrier, a bulldog terrier, a pit bull terrier, an American boxer terrier, terriers are very high strung. They have a high prey drive. You need to know these things, and you need to know how to handle these things in a responsible way, because you're the one that's advocating for this dog, and you're the one that is this dog's voice, and you don't want to set them up to fail.
Absolutely.
I mean, when I
Exactly.
first adopted my first pit bull, he was labeled as a terrier mix. And when I adopted him, I was a little nervous because of the things that I heard. And I had to educate myself so I could have these conversations, because when I would tell people that he was a pit bull, I would always get, he's going to turn on you. Why would you get a pit bull? And he was the sweetest dog.
Right?
The sweetest,
Yeah.
And he's labeled dangerous. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
Well, it's ignorance. It is total ignorance.
Absolutely.
It's ignorance,
Mhm.
and it needs to be educated. It needs it's definitely an issue that, I mean, I did an event for an organization that is a pity rescue, and I can't tell you how many. I have a bow tie that says NBSL, and I can't tell you how many people ask me what is BSL, and I really thought to myself, God, I thought everybody that was in rescue knows what that is.
Oh.
But
Yeah.
but they don't, and education is the only way to spreading the word, like Jen said, sharing, educating, talking about it, getting it out there. it's the only way change will ever be made, period.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Ladies, I want you to take a moment each. Naomi, just before we even get into that, thank you so much. We do need to do more segments on this because it's just so important. And if we're going to talk the talk, we might as well do it also. Right? Naomi,
Yeah.
Bowtie Atticus, tell us about that.
So we are a small business, and we create bow ties, and we also do flowers. And what we do is we donate back for everything that we sell to rescues. I choose a rescue every month. I do have set months with specific rescues, like every October is Stand Up for Pets. Because it is Pit Bull Awareness Month. We're going into our 9th year, and to date, we've been able to donate over $40,000 in product and cash to rescue. I just wanted to grow. I want to do as much as I can to help, period. That's why I think I'm here.
Absolutely. And I love your bow ties, as you know. I'm going to get some for the chickens next.
You know, you gave me the opportunity to make my first bow ties for horses. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, they all look so cute that day. And Jen, Be and Let Live Project.
Yeah. So the Be and Let Live Project is my nonprofit. Naomi is actually the presidente. And we're some things together that we will sharing as soon as we kind of, get it all together and figure out exactly how we're going to do it. But the mission is to help bridge the gap between animal welfare and human welfare. And how we do that is, holistically. It's helping people heal. It's being connected to your community, getting doing everything good, putting all this good energy out there with this right intention, and
recognizing that it starts at the human level.
Absolutely.
The human level.
Ladies, again, thank you so much. I am looking forward to continuing this conversation. Don't go anywhere. Thank you for listening to the Woman Entrepreneur Spotlight and R2RB podcast series. For more information about being a guest on the Woman Entrepreneur Spotlight and R2RB podcast series, email me, Deb LaMotta, at info@r2rb.com. You can find R2RB on Facebook and Instagram at R2R Broadcasting.